Martin tonight as respiratory illnesses rage across the province. Ontario's top doctor will reportedly ask the public to mask up, but won't bring back mask mandates.
Asking, it's literally a no-brainer, but I don't know what governments are trying to appease here or who they're trying to appease.
We're all just sort of letting our kids fend for themselves in this crisis.
Medical experts and some parents urging the province to bring back mask mandates in school. This as the number of kids in ICUs continues to surge, forcing the Hospital for Sick Children to reduce surgeries.
These days, we have to unite together in solidarity.
Yeah, we have a common enemy.
Two communities coming together in a massive show of support for the people of Ukraine and Iran.
Coming in.
A community comes together to support and advocate for Black children and youth with Down syndrome, all led by a young Toronto man affectionately known and loved as Cycle Jordan.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Hello, thanks for joining us. No matter who you talk to or where you go, right now it seems so many people are sick. Respiratory illnesses among children are way up. A perfect storm of COVID, RSV, and flu season, according to the Canadian press. Ontario's top doctor will reportedly ask people in the province to mask up, but so far, no talk of mandates, as Dahlia Ashry shows us. Medical experts and some parents say masks in schools are a must.
We're all just sort of letting our kids fend for themselves in this crisis.
Kate Lang is a member of Ontario School Safety. She's concerned for her kids' health. She's a mother of two boys, a 9-year-old with asthma and a 2-year-old who suffers respiratory issues as well. 3 days into the school year, her family contracted COVID.
There are no mask mandates in school. He's still going to school with the majority of his class who are not masked. He is more likely to suffer from a respiratory collapse. He is more likely to end up in hospital.
Many hospitals in Ontario are seeing a surge in numbers in pediatric ICU. Starting on Monday, Sick Kids Hospital made the decision to reduce the number of surgeries it performs, focusing only on critical care.
Morally distressing for all of us as healthcare professionals, recognizing that we actually cannot do these procedures for the children knowing that they need them.
Sick Kids is not the only hospital to take drastic measures. In Ottawa, CHEO added a second pediatric ICU as it feels the strain as well. Data by Ontario's Acute Care Enhanced Surveillance showed that the number of kids ages 5 to 17 years old who have visited the ER for respiratory complaints over the past week has been more than triple the seasonal average, and ages 0 to 4 years old is more than double the usual number. Medical experts say it's RSV, COVID, and flu season.
You take away the mask mandates, you have a lot of children being exposed at the same time, which is basically overrunning the system.
Medical experts say things are expected to get worse before it gets better, and that's why they're calling on the government to bring back mask mandates in schools.
We are at least looking at until the end of the year, if not the beginning of next year, where we have to reduce this capacity.
We know that the masks have worked in prevention of RSV and influenza, so we really need to have mask mandates.
With a shortage of cold and flu medication for kids and no mask mandates in schools, medical experts are urging that children get their flu and COVID vaccines. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
As you heard Dahlia just say, there's a shortage of pain and fever medication for kids, as well as some antibiotics. Emergency supplies of those drugs are expected to arrive soon. Earlier, CBC spoke with Kiro Massey. He is a pharmacist and owner of Lawler Pharmacy in Toronto.
So this is the worst that I've seen in my career in terms of shortage and respiratory illness in children. I would like to add to the point that you said that there's a shortage of Tylenol as well as Advil. There's a shortage of two things that are extremely difficult for us to manipulate or make. And these are the two most commonly dispensed antibiotics for kids, amoxicillin and azithromycin. And not enough is being said about those. If we cannot treat children in a community setting, this is going to spell a larger disaster for hospitals, as hard as that is to even imagine. So this needs to be addressed as well. I'm really not sure at what point do we refer to this as an emergency? At what point do we have our politicians actually address this in a more urgent fashion? This is a big deal. This is a huge problem. Children are suffering and parents are understandably very frantic. Masking, it's literally a no-brainer, but I don't know what governments are trying to appease here or who they're trying to appease by not reinstating them, at least in schools, so we can stagger this. I have a lot of questions, but nobody is answering this. This is not being treated even close to the urgency that it should be treated in. They're not sitting here dealing with parents crying in a pharmacy. You know, they're hearing children screaming over the phone. 39.8 degree fever for 6 days. Nothing shocks me anymore, but I would really like some answers. I would really like this to be treated with some urgency because it is an emergency and it's going to get worse if we are not able to deal with these patients in community, because then they have to go to hospital. And hospitals are crippled right now, as you've already noted.
As we've heard, the province is expected to urge people to mask up. At least one business in Mississauga doing just that today. Servers at this cafe all in masks. The owner says it felt like the right thing to do.
Well, we've been always very cautious in terms of the whole COVID situation. And as the calls go louder now to bring back masking, we just decided it's time for us to bring back masks. Just to protect our business, protect the health of the staff and customers, and make sure we can remain open at full capacity.
If it makes the employees feel safer and the customers feel safer, I think that it's a great thing.
I think taking any precautions that make them feel comfortable is completely understandable. I don't really mind wearing the mask. So yeah, I know my school started putting masks back on and stuff.
And I myself, when I'm going into the grocery store and things like that, I'm going to be making sure to be wearing my mask again because there is a lot of COVID, but not just COVID. It's all the RSV and the flu that's going around that's really coming on strong right now.
In other news tonight, as negotiations between the province and CUPE education workers continue, a show of solidarity today happening across Ontario, including a rally outside the Premier's office.
The Labour movement will not allow this Ford government to divide workers and not give every worker in that bargaining unit the rightful wage that they deserve and the working conditions that they deserve. We will not be divided. We will not be pitted against each other. Labour is standing ready to make sure we complete this settlement for those education workers.
Last week, workers and allies pushing back against the province's introduction of the notwithstanding clause, bringing the Ford government back to the bargaining table. The union turned down the province's most recent offer. The government says new legislation to repeal the education worker bill will be introduced on Monday. Go buses back on the road today after a 4-day strike that put the brakes on service across the GTA. The union, representing more than 2,000 workers, reached a deal late Thursday night. Today, service is back to normal, with workers expected to make the contract official in the next few days. Iranian and Ukrainian Canadians joining forces today in a massive rally in Richmond Hill. As Greg Ross shows us, organizers say the communities have a lot in common. They're both fighting brutal dictatorships.
Iranian and Ukrainian Canadians marching shoulder to shoulder.
These days, we have to unite together in solidarity.
That enemy is dictatorship.
We're both against dictatorships. We both want freedom for our peoples.
And today, thousands came together to express that message of freedom. In Iran, they want to see the end of the Islamic regime, and Ukraine is fighting for its independence against Vladimir Putin's Russia.
The Iranian regime has always been a threat to the global security and peace, but at this time of the events, it's getting even worse.
Now Iran is supplying weapons, missiles to Russia, and drones that are attack drones, and destroying the infrastructure of Ukraine. They've taken out 30 to 40% of Ukraine's electrical supply, and people are sitting in the dark right now.
Protests against the Islamic regime have been happening globally since Mahsa Amini died in police custody for allegedly breaking the country's hijab laws. Much of the world has also stepped up in support of Ukraine, supplying weapons and other necessities in the war with Russia.
I am very, very happy that everybody is watching and everybody is reporting on the atrocities that is going on Iranian people.
And now you have the world understanding geopolitics, they understand, and demonstrating their support. So it's so inspiring. That's why we have the energy to keep going forward.
Organizers here are hoping that this show of peace and unity can be an example for the world.
That's a very strong message to all the dictators and particularly Iranian regime and the Russian regime that we will be watching and we would not allow them to kill innocent people.
Organizers say they are already considering more joint protests like this one around the GTA. Greg Ross, CBC News, Richmond Hill.
What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now!
Scientists and government officials continue their discussions at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, also known as COP27. At the same time, protests like this continuing. They began earlier this month and include a host of issues, including human rights and calls for the Egyptian government to free some political prisoners. Egypt is facing criticism for cracking down on activists. Those messages also resonating in Toronto.
What do we want? Climate justice! When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
You're looking at a march in Toronto organized by the group Climate Voice in collaboration with a number of labor, environmental, and climate groups. The event featuring speakers from Pakistan and Egypt and also talking about Indigenous climate action, the hope to bring awareness to the climate crisis and call for climate justice.
We have Pakistan with the unprecedented floods. We have other countries who are stepping up and saying that we need to get the funding that's promised to them to help them adapt. We're asking Canada for things, though. We're demanding that Canada stand up for human rights. We're demanding that Canada admit we have to get off fossil fuels and do the work to do that in a just transition that brings workers along and brings communities along.
Indigenous nations coming together to stand in solidarity with one another with the similar crisis that we see in our own communities need to be brought to the tables where our governments are meeting.
We are the people, those who really need to accountable all the big nations. Because of them, we are suffering in Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. So we just want to accountable big polluters.
And Sophia's here with our first look at the forecast, and I hear you're going to tell us about some wintry conditions.
Yeah, just the bearer of the bad news, folks. And what a far cry. This time last week, we were talking about record 20-degree heat, and now we are talking about sizable shoveling snow that will stick on the ground because of cold in the long range. Temperatures really fell down the well today, folks. High of 13 was reached early, and now we are hovering around the freezing mark, and this is after a day of sizable rain for some, 40 in Welland millimeters and 23 in Ottawa. Now it is not rain coming down, it is snow on the 401 right now as we speak. It's not really sticking on the roads, but this is just a taste of what is to come. Winds will come from the north and from the west over the next 36 hours. A 2-day lake effect snow event along the Georgian and the Huron shores coming up. I'll tell you more about what could be 25 centimeters of snowfall and how you could see a few conversational flakes in the GTA and that nobody will escape all of the cold. So I'll tell you all about the fun details in the long range, Shannon.
I looked at all the leaves on the lawn today. Should have raked them up.
They'll be gone soon. The weeds will be gone too, at least, hopefully.
Okay, we'll see you shortly. The Prime Minister has given the go-ahead to a multi-million-dollar initiative supporting Canada's private sector in the Indo-Pacific region. The announcement comes just days after Ottawa hinted at a tougher stance against China. Rafi Pujakanyan has more from Cambodia.
When Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau landed in Cambodia today, he brought his checkbook.
We want Canadian businesses to know more about Indo-Pacific markets, especially sectors and solutions where Canadian innovation can respond to regional demand.
It's all part of Canada's long-awaited Indo-Pacific strategy. Today's announcement includes $84 million to combat illegal fishing and support clean oceans, $100 million for inclusive governance and climate resiliency, and $24 million to help the Canadian private sector. By its own admission, Ottawa has been absent from this region of the world.
The goal of Canada right now is to make sure that the region here understands that we are a reliable partner. For too long, Canada has been present in the region, but not at the level that we could be, and we're stepping up and making sure it is a priority.
This renewed engagement also in lockstep with initiatives from the United States.
We're going to work together to develop an integrated electric vehicle ecosystem in Southeast Asia, enabling the region to pursue clean energy economic development and ambitious emissions reduction targets.
Another similarity to Canada and the U.S.'s approach to the region, how they'll tackle China. Ottawa's already said it will talk tough when it comes to standing up for Taiwan, Hong Kong, and imprisoned Uyghurs in concentration camps while it helps Beijing fight climate change. Words that have already angered China's Foreign Affairs Department. Trudeau may well get a reminder of that at the next summit on his agenda, the G20 in Indonesia, where Chinese President Xi Jinping is also expected to attend. Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News, Phnom Penh, Cambodia.
A celebration in Toronto today for Black families with children and youth with Down syndrome. It's all inspired by Jordan Isaac, who's well known and loved as Cycle Jordan. We had a chance to meet him recently to hear how he's connecting community and inspiring so many.
Hello. Cool blue. Jeez.
Jordan Isaac doesn't just like his bike, he loves it. So it's pretty fitting that over the past couple of years, he's become known and celebrated as Cycle Jordan.
People recognize me now. They're like, oh, you're Cycle Jordan's sister, or like, oh, you're Jordan's sister. And I'm like, yeah, so it's really weird, like at the grocery store or whatever.
Well, it takes some getting used to. That recognition is well earned. The idea for Cycle Jordan, the fundraising event, all started in this very spot back in 2020. That's when the family met Jamal Berger with The Kickback, a Toronto-based charity that aims to empower underserved youth to achieve their dreams and change the world.
He met Jordan and he was like, oh, this is your brother. And Jordan goes up to him and he's like, I'm Michael Jordan, and walks away. And Jamal was like, whoa, like, who is this kid? And he said immediately, like, wow, it would be really nice to have a bike ride where Jordan leads, the community follows him, and we raise funds for whatever it is that he needs. And I was like, what? How does this guy's mind work? And he was very serious about it. And the next week we started planning for Cycle Jordan, and that's how it started.
With some help from The Kickback and the Mandem Cycling Club, that first year of Cycle Jordan was a huge success, raising $5,000. Money that allowed Jordan to begin consistent speech therapy, which for many families is often too costly.
Grand.
Excellent. Has it helped his confidence, would you say?
Oh my God, his confidence has grown exponentially. It's like amazing. And Jordan, he's reading. He started reading. The other day we were reading and he read a big word, people. And I was like, wow, I was excited.
I'm coming in hot.
Seeing Jordan's remarkable progress, they decided to go bigger, expanding Cycle Jordan to fundraise for other Black children and youth with Down syndrome.
There's 4 recipients in total, including Jordan, 2 girls, Daylin and Jaliatu, and Saidu. Those connections that we're creating through Cycle Jordan are extremely important. Like, I remember just growing up with my mom and Jordan and not really knowing other families out there who have like a Black child with Down syndrome, and me thinking that we were an anomaly or the only ones out there. And through Cycle Jordan, just meeting other parents, Black parents who have, you know, a child or youth with Down syndrome, and hearing like that they feel isolated as well. So it's really important for us to just come together and support one another and be there for each other, and also for the, you know, children and youth, for them to become friends if they so choose to, and just to see that like they're not the only ones out there and there is community.
The City of Toronto kicking off the holiday season, starting with the setup of a huge evergreen tree at Nathan Phillips Square.
The launching of our very, very tall Christmas tree at City Hall. It's 16.75 meters long, or 55 feet, and in a couple of days they're going to start decorating it with 300,000 LED efficient lights.
This is just the start of the square's festive transformation. How cool is that video? The tree will be lit up during the cavalcade of lights, along with other glowing decor to brighten up the city. That event happens later this month. Sophia, just in case people want to take the kids, that happens Saturday, November 26th. The lights go on at 8:30. I feel like that would be such a fun time.
And
Yes.
we may have snow on the ground, and the temperatures may be very festive and Christmassy and chilly as well. Say it ain't snow. I had to say it, Shannon. We've got lots of festive events going on, and we have lots of festive weather to go along with it. I think the Niagara Falls Santa Claus Parade is on, Snow Magic at Ontario Place. The list goes on, and as does the chilly temps and this snow. We talked a little bit about the snow squall event. Let's time it out for you now. Overnight Saturday, right until Monday afternoon. It's these two bands, one along the Huron shores as far south as London. You'll see the flakes fly. And then on the Georgian shores as far south as Orangeville and Newmarket. They are constant, these bands of snow, blowing snow and reduced visibility, which is why all the usual suspects in the snowbelt region are in a snow squall watch. Now you will have shoveling snow for many of the hard-hit areas. We're talking upwards of 25 centimeters. Yes, I know, it's a big shock to the system. Kitchener, Orangeville, Newmarket, Shelburne, you're all in that 5 to 10 range. Shoveling snow that will stick on the ground as well, because nobody will escape the cold. For those of you in the GTA, over the next 36 hours, you may see some flakes fly, but maybe not stick as much along the 400 and along the 401. But yes, the blowing snow could definitely be a possibility. We talked about the cold. It will certainly be there for all of us. We'll feel closer to the freezing mark at puck drop and after the Leafs game tonight. And we don't really get out of this cold regime. Saturday overnight, we're below the feels like below the freezing mark. It continues into Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon, where for the daytime high, we feel at the freezing mark. We will finally, though, get to our first frost. We've been waiting. We blew the last record out of the water, Shannon. We're a week late, but we will finally see it Sunday into Monday. And for the next 2 weeks, we will continue to be below seasonal. And should I leave you with just this last little bit of good news? More snow and mixing potentially on the way Tuesday and Wednesday.
25 centimeters, my goodness, can't believe it.
Yeah, we're not ready yet, are we?
No, we got to bring out the clothes. That's it for us. Here's a live look from downtown. We'll see you again tomorrow night.